Hello, it's the Mirror Moves Again, where neighborhood drama, entitled antics, and HOA Karens turn into stories you'll never forget. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, because trust me, you never want to miss what's coming next. This story today is about HOA Karen called 911 over my SUV, but the police uncovered the shocking truth. The morning started out perfectly calm, cold air, coffee in hand, and a quiet neighborhood. Until the moment I opened my garage door. I froze. Parked inside my own garage, sitting under the soft glow of winter sunlight, was a brand new black SUV, the exact model I'd purchased just 2 days ago after months of saving. But before I could even admire it, Karen's screech cut through the morning like a fire alarm. She was standing at the edge of my driveway, her phone in one hand, her HOA clipboard in the other, her face flushed with righteous fury. "That's my car. I knew you were the thief." At first, I thought she was joking. But then she stormed across the street, waving her phone like a sword, and within seconds, she dialed 911 right in front of me. Her voice carried so loudly that blinds started shifting and doors cracked open all up and down the block. Within minutes, half the neighborhood was standing outside in their pajamas, clutching mugs of coffee, eager to watch the latest HOA drama unfold. I tried to explain calmly that I had just bought the car. I even had the papers sitting on my kitchen counter, but Karen wasn't listening. She jabbed her finger at me like she was leading a courtroom trial. "I saw that exact model at the dealership yesterday. This is VIN fraud. You hacked the registry." It would have been funny if it wasn't happening in front of the entire neighborhood. Every word she yelled pulled in more spectators. People leaned on fences, whispering theories like we were in the middle of a live crime show. And then, just to escalate things, Karen spun around dramatically and yelled for everyone to hear. "Call the HOA board. He's hiding stolen property in his garage." I could feel my blood boiling, but I knew better than to fight fire with fire. Not with this Karen, not in this HOA-run community. Still, I could already see where this was heading. She wasn't just making noise. She was building a case, a performance staged perfectly for the cops, the HOA, and anyone who would listen. And right there, as she stood in the driveway screaming, I realized this wasn't just about a car. This was personal. By the time the police cruisers rolled up, the neighborhood had transformed into a live HOA courtroom. Red and blue lights washed over the street, and Karen, never one to waste a perfectly dramatic moment, rushed toward the first officer before he'd even closed his car door. "Officer, arrest him. He stole my brand new SUV, and now he's hiding it in his garage." The officer blinked at her, clearly caught between confusion and amusement. He motioned for her to slow down, but Karen's hands flew like she was conducting an orchestra of outrage. I stayed at the edge of the driveway, arms crossed, calm, but very aware that Karen was playing this like a Netflix courtroom drama. The officer approached me next, his tone measured. "Sir, we got a report of a stolen vehicle being stored on this property. Can you provide proof of ownership?" I nodded, disappearing into the house to grab the stack of dealership documents I had neatly filed just days before. When I came back, Karen was practically shaking with anticipation, like she expected the cops to drag me away in handcuffs. I handed the officer the bill of sale, title application, and insurance paperwork. He scanned the papers, nodded, and asked for my driver's license. Karen leaned over his shoulder like a hawk, waiting for any tiny detail she could weaponize. Then came the twist. The officer radioed dispatch to confirm the VIN number against active theft reports. Karen folded her arms, grinning smugly like she'd already won. The whole street fell silent as everyone waited for the response. The radio crackled. "Vehicle registered legally under homeowner's name. No theft report matches." Karen's face went pale, but she didn't back down. Instead, she pivoted, shouting loud enough for the entire block to hear. "Well, of course there's no report yet. He hacked the DMV system. This is fraud at the highest level." At this point, even the officer sighed. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "unless you have legal ownership documents for this car, I can't act on your claims." Her jaw dropped. She fumbled for her phone, scrolling furiously through something, probably trying to find a half-baked HOA rule she could throw in his face. But the officer wasn't buying it. And that's when Karen made her next big mistake. She called the HOA president on speakerphone. Within minutes, 2 more HOA board members showed up, siding with her instantly without knowing a single fact. Suddenly, I wasn't just explaining myself to the police. I was defending my car ownership in what looked like a full-on public tribunal right there on my driveway. And behind the growing crowd, whispers started spreading fast. Neighbors took sides, pointing fingers, trading theories, and filming on their phones. One woman muttered, "This is better than reality TV." Karen doubled down, declaring this was a matter of community safety and demanding the HOA impound my vehicle until the investigation was over. The lead officer finally cut through the chaos, his voice sharp. "Ma'am, the matter's settled. This car is registered to him. Any further harassment will result in a formal complaint." The words hit her like a punch, but instead of retreating, Karen's expression hardened. I could see it in her eyes. This wasn't over. Because for Karen, losing wasn't an option. I thought the worst was behind me after the police confirmed the SUV was mine, but I underestimated Karen. Losing publicly had only fueled her fury, and within 24 hours, the real war began. The next morning, I woke to find a bright orange community violation notice taped to my garage door. According to Karen and her HOA loyalists, my suspicious car posed a security risk to the neighborhood and needed to be removed until further verification. I laughed at first. Then I noticed 3 more violation letters stacked in my mailbox. My lawn edging was half an inch outside HOA uniformity standards. My mailbox was 2 degrees off the required vertical alignment. And apparently, my trash bins were left visible for exactly 7 minutes longer than HOA regulations allowed. Each petty strike was deliberate. Karen wasn't hiding her intent anymore. She was weaponizing the HOA's rulebook against me, burying me under paperwork, fines, and thinly veiled threats. The neighborhood starts taking sides. By the end of the week, the entire block had split into 2 camps. Those who backed Karen's crusade for community order, and those who were tired of her tyranny. It became impossible to walk outside without whispers rippling behind me. Phones were out constantly, recording everything. My simple driveway had become ground zero for neighborhood gossip. But Karen wasn't done. That Friday night, I spotted her sneaking around my property with a flashlight and clipboard. When I stepped outside, she jumped like a guilty raccoon, muttering something about evidence collection. And that's when Frank, my next-door neighbor, stepped in. Frank, the quiet retired engineer who rarely left his garage, revealed something huge. "I've got everything on my Ring camera," he whispered. "Karen's been stalking your property for weeks." My heart skipped. If Frank's footage showed what he claimed, it could end her entire campaign. A week later, Karen called an emergency HOA board meeting to address ongoing safety violations. The community hall overflowed. Folding chairs scraped the floor as neighbors crammed shoulder to shoulder, eager to watch the chaos. Karen sat at the head table, her stack of printed HOA bylaws neatly lined up like ammunition. Her allies flanked her on both sides, nodding along dramatically. Karen launched into a fiery monologue, painting me as a rogue resident who was defrauding the community, harboring stolen property, and creating a hostile living environment. The crowd erupted in murmurs until Frank stood up. Calm, steady, with a USB stick in hand, he walked to the projector and said, "Let's settle this with facts." The video played. Karen's voice filled the room first, yelling accusations at me from the night she called 911. Then came the cops explaining the SUV was mine. The footage of her stomping around my property at midnight made the crowd gasp. And finally, the close-up. Karen standing in front of my garage, scribbling notes like a detective from a bad sitcom. Karen's face drained of color, but she wasn't giving up. She slammed the table, yelling, "That footage is illegal. Invasion of privacy." The room exploded in laughter. For the first time, Karen's iron grip on the HOA cracked in front of everyone. And I knew then, the next move had to be mine. I thought exposing Karen's midnight prowling would calm things down, but if anything, it lit a fuse. The HOA hall buzzed for days, neighbors whispering, kids giggling every time they passed Karen's house. Her once feared authority? Gone. But Karen wasn't someone who faded quietly. She was preparing for her final strike. One evening, I found a thick envelope taped to my front door. Inside, a 3-page community safety alert, and signed but clearly written by Karen. It accused me of storing stolen property, threatening neighbors, And my personal favorite, maintaining a dangerous lifestyle inconsistent with HOA values. I was ready to laugh it off until I noticed copies stuffed into every single mailbox in the neighborhood. Karen had gone nuclear, but she made one fatal mistake. She underestimated how tired everyone was of her chaos. The HOA called an emergency town hall to address ongoing community safety concerns. The hall overflowed. Karen arrived dramatically late, wearing sunglasses indoors and a faux designer scarf, clutching a binder thick enough to be a lawsuit. She marched to the podium, ready to flip the narrative. "I have here," she announced, holding up a stack of papers, "evidence of a conspiracy to undermine this HOA and destabilize our peaceful neighborhood." Gasps filled the room. But before she could launch into her speech, Frank stood up again, this time with a different USB stick. "Before we listen to more stories," he said calmly, "you all need to see this." He plugged it in, and the footage rolled. Well, the video that destroyed her. Frank's camera had caught everything the night Karen called 911. Her walking up to my garage, her tugging on my SUV door handle, her phone pressed to her ear as she screamed into the 911 line that I was stealing her car. And finally, her startled face when the cops arrived, only to confirm the vehicle was legally mine. The silence in the room was deafening. Then came the whispers, then the outright laughter. Karen slammed her binder shut and shrieked, "This is an invasion of privacy. You can't use that footage." The HOA president cleared his throat and replied, "Karen, that's your own voice on camera." That was it. Years of petty fines, ridiculous accusations, and harassment had built up to this moment. One by one, neighbors stood up. A young mom holding her toddler said Karen fined her for sidewalk chalk. An elderly couple revealed she threatened to sue them over a bird feeder. Another neighbor said Karen forced them to repaint their shed 3 times because the beige wasn't neutral enough. The room erupted in frustration. Within minutes, a motion was filed, seconded, and passed. Karen was removed from her HOA leadership position effective immediately. For the first time in years, the neighborhood cheered together. Karen stormed out of the hall red-faced, muttering threats, but it was over. A week later, her nameplate disappeared from the HOA office. Her fines, citations, and violation letters were voided. Even her allies quietly distanced themselves, suddenly remembering how difficult she had been. And Karen? She retreated into silence. Her once perfectly manicured lawn became overgrown, and rumors swirled she was selling the house. For the first time in years, the cul-de-sac felt peaceful. The next morning, I opened my garage with a smile and saw Frank standing across the street with his coffee. "Told you she'd implode," he said, grinning. I laughed. My daughter ran out, waving her little toy car, and shouted, "Daddy, can we build another snowman?" This time, it wasn't just us. The entire block gathered to help. Neighbors rolling snow, kids laughing, parents talking freely without fear. For the first time since moving in, this felt like a community again. And Karen? She hasn't been seen since. But sometimes, late at night, Frank swears he still hears faint muttering about community bylaws carried away by the wind. Thank you for watching. Let us know if you have any stories that want to be shared, and subscribe to the Mirror Moves for more.